No. I suspect the best Disney Channel original movie, or DCOM, is one of these. But it does rank high on the list, and it's always been a favorite of mine. And I was surprised to learn that that's the case with a lot of people. See, a while back, the YouTuber Jarvis Johnson made a tweet responding to someone's holy trifecta of Disney movies, which was High School Musical, Camp Rock, and the Hannah Montana movie. Jarvis said that the Hannah Montana movie should be out, and in a reply said that it should be High School Musical too. But a lot of people said that it should be Lemonade Mouth. And I was like, wow, people remember this movie. This movie still has fans. And this one has actually been on my video topics list for a year or more, but after seeing that tweet I decided, well, I'll do it next, why not? And that ended up taking several months to get started, but you know how it is. I don't know how bothered the Disney Channel is with copyright on YouTube, but I'm gonna play some of the music, so I guess we will find out. So, for all you Nickelodeon babies, Lemonade Mouth is a 2011 DCOM based on a 2007 YA book. It's about 5 kids existing in a high school dominated by sports. When they end up in detention together, they form a band, Lemonade Mouth, to prove that the arts are worth it. Many cliches already, we're off to a good start. Our stars today are Bridget Mendler of Good Luck Charlie fame, Adam Hicks, Zeke and Luther, pair of kings and yikes. Hayley Kiyoko, who I can only remember being in a few episodes of Wizards of Waverly Place before this, which Bridget Mendler was also in, although I don't think they shared any screen time. Naomi Scott, best known for playing Princess Jasmine recently, so that's pretty cool. She was also in that Power Rangers movie that nobody saw. And Blake Michael, who I only remember being in Dog with a Blog.
Poets. Geniuses. Revolutionaries.
Lemonade Mouth has been called all of these things. The movie starts with some narration from Olivia, the lead singer of Lemonade Mouth. Her voiceover plays on top of a montage of the band being prepared for a show, cut together with fans rushing into the venue. It's shot like the opening of a documentary, careful not to show you any of their faces. In the background, a heartbeat gets faster and louder. The start of a song, a slow arpeggio on a piano, begins. Olivia ponders if the fans would believe the story of how the band came to be if they knew it. They walk on stage, their silhouettes larger than life on a screen behind them. Everything goes quiet and dark, and you hear only the first word of the song. And then bam! Hard cut, we're back in high school. In detention, Olivia introduces us to our cast. Stella Yamada, lead guitar. Gwen Gifford, keyboard. Mo Bangery, bass. Charlie Delgado, drum god. And her, Olivia White, future frontman for Lemonade Mouth. And those are totally real-sounding names, I know. And then we go back in time again, to that morning. This intro sequence cuts around between different members of the band, showing us a little of their regular lives and telling us what their problem is, like what their character arc is going to be. We start off with Stella. Now, Stella's not like her family. Stella is a rebel. Stella plays a strat while her brothers play chess. Stella wears a shirt that says "Question Authority." Stella's mom tells her it's time to go, and she makes this face. It's Stella's first day at a new school, and she's starting a month into the year. And it really bothers me that you can hear her mumbling over the sound of a car engine here.
Why would that be hard?
Oh, check out the new girl.
Why do writers think this is how high schoolers behave? Next, we cut to Wen and his father dropping off his father's girlfriend, Sydney, at a community college. Am I crazy, or is the name of this school CGI? Right, now Wen doesn't like Sydney. Shocking, I know. Wen thinks it's weird that his dad is dating someone who's still in college, which, you know, fair. Next, we meet Charlie, who is obnoxiously drumming on the back of his parents' seats. They all exposit about how soccer tryouts are today, and how Charlie's older brother Tommy, who's in college now, was a soccer superstar, and how Charlie is going to have to try out even though he clearly doesn't want to. Also, Mom cries, which I'll bring up again later. Then Charlie gets out and ogles our next POV character, Mo, an Indian immigrant being reminded by her father to try and get extra credit. Then her father gets mad at her for wearing lipstick, which I find funny considering she clearly also has at least foundation on. Then she sees Scott. Scott is the worst character in this movie. You can tell because the first thing she does when she sees him is book it.
Yeah, you know.
So real quick, I want to stop and talk about some of the technical stuff in this scene. I don't know a lot about cinematography or editing in film, but I think this scene is pretty alright as long as you attach the eternal qualifier of for a DCOM. I think the reason I like it is it feels intentional. There is effort here, there was planning. Like, check this one out. We've got a handheld camera here. You can tell because of all the shake, and because the edge of the frame dips down towards their heads here, which does seem kinda amateurish, but let's ignore that. The handheld shaky feel does a great job of capturing what it feels like to be heading into school at the start of the day, getting jostled around by all the the other sheep. People walking in front of you, blocking your line of sight, and whoa! Check out that invisible cut. We're far from Stella, then a person walks across the camera, and then we're close to Stella. Or look right here, we've got a little bit of a Dutch angle as Mo is running in terror. Look, I know it's basic, but it's using the chaos of the scene to the movie's advantage, trying to create some semblance of style. And in the context this movie exists in, you really have to give whoever was behind this props, because it didn't have to be like this. It could have been super mindless and nobody would have cared. But I appreciate it. Stuff like this is why this movie stands out from the dozens of other DCOMs. But the scene with Charlie in the car is really weird.
Hey! There you are.
Hey, Scott, you scared me.
So then we find out that Mo and Scott are actually dating. He pressures her into ditching school with him and his band. She says maybe this weekend, and he's like,
Come on. Just this once. For me.
Gross. And then we meet Brennigan, the principal, the main antagonist. He's like super anti-free speech, to a comical extent. It doesn't really fit with the tone of the rest of the movie. He says Stella can't wear her rebel shirt. Obviously, you and I can both see that it's a perfectly normal shirt and a weird thing to make a big deal about. I'll swing back to that too. They both see that Mo and Scott are skipping on the security monitors. I don't know what he just did to that remote, but there's no way it translated to rewind and zoom. So Mo gets detention for skipping class. Scott doesn't, because he plays sports. Wen calls the teacher stupid after everyone is super gross about Sydney.
Check out Wen's mommy.
Olivia gets caught reading Emily Dickinson in the broom closet. Charlie gets provoked by Ray, the blonde one that makes weird faces, and throws a ball at the coach's head. At an assembly, Brennigan starts saying some hypocritical stuff about wanting empowered students, so Stella is inspired to be a gosh dang hecking rebel. This scene is secondhand shame at its finest. I won't make you watch it.
Hey, don't let your school
So then we follow Stella to the basement, where all the non-sport related extracurriculars have been moved. Outside of the door to detention, which is in the music room, there's a vending machine. It sells one brand, one flavor of lemonade. We have another nice moment of style from the movie as we see each of the 5 characters getting a lemonade cut together into one action. And suddenly we're back to where we were. Miss Resnick, the music teacher, resumes her ranting from earlier. So we're finally through all that intro flashback stuff. That didn't take too long, did it? Did it? Resnick tells them to clean, something teenagers are famously good at, before leaving to yell at Brennigan. As you do when you're put in charge of delinquents.
Can you guys just do what Miss Resnick asked and be quiet, okay? I'm not getting another detention because of you people.
In another pretty cool segment, all the cleaning noises and fidgety sounds the students are making begin to sink into a rhythm. Then they start messing around with the instruments, and you can guess what happens next.
Come on, turn up the music. It's all we got, we're gonna use it. Feel the beat and just let go. Get the rhythm into your soul.
The cast have good chemistry in this scene. It's a good scene. So then Resnick turns back up and freaks out about how good they are together and says they should be a band and teach Brennigan a lesson, and they're all just kinda like, nah. After school, Stella is at home with her omnivorous family while she's a vegetarian. And hold on, did they have Stella change her shirt just for this gag? Because you can't get away with changing her shirt in the middle of the day for no reason when her shirt was a plot point earlier. We know what shirt she was wearing. Anyway, going unnoticed by her own family inspires Stella to start a revolution. So the next day, she adds everybody to a group chat to talk about being in a band. That's not how texting apps work. So they all go to get pizza. And I really like that they're out somewhere, not just in the cafeteria at lunch or something. A lot of teen movies tend to forget that people have lives outside of high school. So I like that they go to get pizza. Makes the whole thing feel more grounded. Stella reveals that she signed them up to open at the school Halloween bash, and for a Battle of the Bands type thing, Rising Star, where you can win a record deal. I just had a lot of trouble with that line. So eventually everyone agrees to be in the band. The first practice doesn't go so well. Stella lectures Charlie about what chords they're playing, which I don't really know why that's relevant to the drummer, but there you go. Mo and Charlie get frustrated and quit until Olivia starts singing to them.
Can you listen? 'Cause I've been trying to make you notice. It's easy to feel like somebody. We've been on our way to nowhere, trying so hard to get there. And I said,
This song is usually the first to come to mind when I think of this movie. It was in a lot of the advertising. As you probably expected, I have a few things to say about the music, but I'm gonna hold off for one more musical number. So as it turns out, the band they're opening for at the Halloween bash is Mudslide Crush, a band seemingly comprised entirely of soccer players, including Scott and Ray. And the big MC is not happy about it. Mo tells Scott that she's part of the opening band.
It's me.
What?
I'm in the band.
And Scott is a typical Scott about it.
Well, maybe my music is important to me too.
I'm sure it is. It's just think about it, okay? I mean, I really don't want this to come between us.
He's so icky. Wow, I love All American Rejects. Did y'all come all the way out here to just play the one song? So the next day everyone is staring at the band like they're lepers, I guess because everyone is super invested in musical rivalry. But that doesn't get them down. They try to come up with a band name, but they can't decide on anything.
No, you're right, it's terrible.
This boy has more red flags than the entirety of China. Dump him, he's not worth it. So then Ray and a few cheerleaders ambush Olivia while she's trying to get a drink. And just look how the camera moves in this scene, how it shakes, how it whips around or pulls in close. It does such a good job of communicating a feeling of claustrophobia, like being surrounded. It's good. So these numbskulls are all kind of just fine to let Ray push them around until Stella jumps in and straight up spits in his stupid face. It's so satisfying. Brannigan shows up on a Segway, but is going way too fast considering he's in a building full of 14-year-olds.
Next thing you know, it's lemonade mouth over here.
Roll credits. In the next scene, Wynn and Olivia are at her house songwriting. It's a cute little scene. It's mostly just to establish that Olivia lives with her grandmother, that Nancy is an old and sick cat that used to belong to Olivia's mother, and there's something about Olivia's dad that she doesn't want to say. On their way to the last practice before the Halloween bash, they see that the lemonade machine that's become so critical to their development is scheduled for removal as a part of the sponsorship deal that paid for the new gymnasium. Wynn comes home to see a bunch of boxes everywhere, and his dad reveals that he's proposed to Sydney and she's moving in, without consulting his own son even once apparently. Not cool, Dad. Then the next day, the day of the bash, Ray sets Mo up to find Scott with some other girl. It's for the best. And then it's the bash, 10 minutes until their performance in fact, and nobody has seen Olivia. Ray and Scott try to convince Brannigan that she isn't going to turn up, but the band find her in the bathroom freaking out.
We've got plenty, thank you. Maybe next door?
So they have a heart-to-heart and drink some lemonade and get her feeling good enough to go up on stage. And Scott's like, ooh, stop heckling them, as if he wasn't trying to sabotage them like a minute and a half ago. To me, this right here is this movie's big musical number, the one big song before the intermission, the one that gets repeatedly called back to. Other than the finale, this is the song. So I guess this is as good a place as any to talk about the music, because unfortunately, the music is this film's Achilles heel. And that's a weird thing to say about a DCOM. I don't hate the music, it's fine, the vocals are usually fine, when Hicks raps, he can stay on beat. The lyrics aren't profound, but they also aren't so repetitive or stupid that they'll bother you. And we all know that Disney rap is cringy, I have nothing more to add to that. The problem with the music is that it lacks identity. In the book, Lemonade Mouth plays less common instruments, like the trombone or the standing bass. That's why they're revolutionary and why their success is important. In the movie, they're set up exactly like any garage band. This is because the soundtrack is designed to be playable on Radio Disney removed from the context of the film. It's designed to be bland, grandma safe, and poppy. That's why it fails. And it stands out against how stylized the camera work and editing is. And it's disappointing. Imagine if this film had bops on the level of High School Musical. It is true that the songs in this movie are in the context of a band performing. It's not a non-diegetic musical in the traditional sense. But the popification of the soundtrack was not an accident. This film came out right in the middle of the Radio Disney push, when Disney was trying to break into whatever weird baby music space that Kids Bop exists in. I don't know how much control the filmmakers had over this, or if the network handed them a list of songs and said, make it work. Regardless, it's a shame. As far as the performance of the music goes, like I said, the vocals are mostly fine. It rarely looks like Stella or Wynn are doing anything you can actually hear, but that's about par for the course. And one last note, there are actually no romantic love songs here, so that's pretty refreshing. All the platonic love songs are pretty gooey though. I really like this little moment of the sound guy singing along. He's a pretty minor character that I haven't mentioned yet, but he's cool. This is one of those great little character moments that make everything feel more grounded. The band immediately starts into another song for once in a movie, another one of the more iconic ones. They pass out some Mel's Lemonade and call out the fact that the school treats non-sports players like they don't matter. Then they sing a song about being a heckin' rebel. Remember, Brannigan hates the First Amendment, so he turns off the power in the middle of the song. The next Monday, he calls them all into his office to let them know that Lemonade Mouth is no longer allowed at the school.
But, just for your information, A high school dance is no place for a political tirade.
Wow. What? Stop looking directly into the camera. But Brannigan was too slow to stop the revolution. The AV guy made and has been selling CDs of their live performance. They got a review in the newspaper, students hung up banners and signs everywhere, randos fawned over them in the halls. Obviously, Brannigan is not pleased about this.
Hector, it is not a piñata. Don't poke it. Hit it. Take it down.
Does this guy not know how banners work? Since they can't play at school, they get a weekly gig at the pizzeria from before.
Before we knew it, we were playing at Dante's Pizzeria every Thursday night.
We have a little bit of a time skip here, and then we get back into it with another song, which I personally think is the most underrated on the whole soundtrack.
Away, learn to fly. If you want her back, gotta let her shine. So it looks like the joke's on you. 'Cause the girl that you thought you knew, she's so good.
Man, Scott just lurks in the corner of every scene. Look, there he is again! So one day Olivia isn't at school, so everyone goes to her house to check on her. It turns out that her mom's cat Nancy has died. In her backyard, they all cloud gaze and talk about their insecurities. Stella thinks she's too stupid to be in her family. Mo feels smothered by her father's expectations. Charlie doesn't think he'll ever live up to his brother. Wen, still, doesn't like Sydney, that's fine. Olivia reveals that her dad is in prison and she's too embarrassed to talk to or about him. Mo, who you talking to? So then they all sing another song about what good friends they are.
Reach for my head, 'cause it's held out for you. My shoulders are strong, but you can cry on them too. Everything changes, but one thing is true. Understand, we'll always be more than a band.
It's a nice song and a nice sequence. As a kid, I always thought it looked like they had a lot of fun shooting this. Halfway through the song, it transitions from one day at Olivia's backyard to another day at Stella's backyard, but I didn't realize that until right now as I'm writing this, so I was really confused as to why Stella's brothers randomly ran in with cameras for years, actual years.
Oh, come on, Mo. Can we please just talk?
Go away, Scott. Nobody likes you.
The band was originally called When.
And then Determinate gets on the radio. Unfortunately, we are now in the third act, and you know what that means. Things go downhill for our protagonists at an alarming rate. It's the day before Rising Star. Lemonade Mouth is performing at Dante's. Olivia is losing her voice, Mo can't stop coughing, and Ray's heckling is starting to get to them. Ray starts a fight that wrecks the restaurant, and Dante blames this on the band for some reason, so they lose their gig. Charlie confesses his love to Mo. I don't know if I even mentioned that was a subplot, but it is. Mo says she's just not into him like that, and Charlie is a total child about it.
No, you know what? Be heard. It's a stupid song. I'm never singing it again.
Mo attracts the worst ones. Even she doesn't understand why he's reacting like this. So Charlie goes home and angry drums so hard that he breaks his fingers. Wen's father asks Wen to be his best man and then drops a picture frame directly onto his eyeball. Olivia messes up her voice after yelling at Wen for not appreciating his family.
I don't even remember my mom. I haven't talked to my dad in years, and you have the nerve to feel sorry for yourself?
Chill, Olivia. You having problems doesn't make other people's problems less valid. Then the band gets an SOS call from Stella. They all arrive at the school to find her sitting in the way of the people trying to remove the lemonade machine. Shout out to how this scene was clearly shot in broad daylight and then they just slapped a blue filter on top, sprinkled some water on Mo, and expected you to buy that it's raining.
Okay, kid, enough playing around. I got 3 more pickups today.
It's gonna rain. Let's get out of here.
Nice acting, extras. Good job. Thank you.
Move or I move you.
Anyway, it gets turned into a physical altercation and the cops get called. Next we see the band, they're in a holding cell. Everyone is angry at each other. Stella tries to tell them that they should still go to Rising Star even if they can't win, but nobody is in the mood to listen to her because it's her fault that they're in jail. Then there's another moment like at the beginning where all their anxious tapping and flicking noises sync together into a beat, and then they hum a little bit of the first song and everything is all better. Next, they all kind of resolve their character arcs. Wen's father is stuck at work, so Sydney comes to get him instead, and Wen gives her a hug. Mo tells her parents that she's never going to be the perfect daughter they want.
I deserve for you to just let me be me.
I appreciate your character growth, but now doesn't really seem like the time to be making demands. Charlie's brother Tommy picks him up and confesses that his grades aren't very good, and Charlie realizes he isn't so perfect after all. Stella's mom tells her that she doesn't actually think she's stupid, so good for you, Stella. So, despite the fact that they're battered and bruised, they go to Rising Star. Hey, All Time Low is back. So they get out on stage, but Wynn's vision is too blurry to see the keys, and Charlie's hand is broken, and Olivia still doesn't have her voice. So they can't play, but the audience sings for them, and Scott goes on stage and plays for them. Look at Scott, standing there all triumphantly like he's a good person. You're not redeemed because you did one nice thing, you creep. So, they don't win Rising Star, but they do all grow as people, which I guess is kind of the same as a record deal. Mo and Scott get back together, which is just yuck. And Charlie gets over Mo, which is real mature and all, but I would have liked it better if he just hit Scott in the face instead. Don't look at me like that. With Sydney's help, Wynn gets Olivia a new kitty and says she really isn't that bad. The whole band attends the wedding. Stella chats with the person next to her, a college friend of Wynn's dad, and through some incredible stroke of luck, it turns out it's Mel, the guy who makes the lemonade they're named after. Yes, really. Somehow, Stella talks Mel into funding an entire auditorium for their new school, which I doubt could even be finished with construction before these kids graduate, but whatever. And then we learn that Olivia's narration the whole time has been one big letter to her father, and we watch her send it off. And then...
Oh, I almost forgot, Dad. You're never gonna believe where we're playing next week.
And we finally get to hear that song we heard the intro of at the very start. Of course Charlie has a Willy Wonka hat. And okay, am I the only one who feels like it runs a little contrary to the rest of the movie for them to not even be playing their own instruments at the end? And there you have it, Lemonade Mouth. Now, I know this video is already running pretty long, but I'd like to have a few more minutes of your time to talk about some ways that the movie differs from the book. Not because I think the movie is inherently worse for being different, but because I think it explains some oddities across the film. It's kind of weird how they went about this. Because the movie was made for a younger demographic than the book, they had to tone some things down. Instead of adapting the story to fit around the changes, they just kind of treat the lighter stuff as if it has the same gravity as the original, which I actually kind of like, despite the fact that it does get kind of dumb at times. And keep in mind, I haven't read the book. When the movie came out, they re-released the novel with some changes to make it more similar to the movie, and that's the only version I could find, so I didn't bother reading it. So this is just information I got from the internet. The first thing, Charlie's brother. In the movie, his name is Tommy, and he's away at college for most of the film. In the book, he's called Aaron, and he was stillborn. So Charlie spends the whole movie with a sort of survivor's guilt about it. That makes his mom's random tears at the start make more sense. I get why they couldn't keep that in, but it is a more interesting story. Second is Stella's rebel shirt. I couldn't find any info on what it actually was, but I can only assume it was much worse than what we got, because the fact that this is what the movie considers edgy is honestly a little embarrassing. Additionally, Stella has a stepmom and half-siblings in the book, which is why she feels so different from them. But conveying that in the movie would have probably been inelegant and confusing, and I don't really think it changed the story. Next, Olivia got the Disney dead parent treatment. In the book, her mom left, whereas in the movie, she's dead. This doesn't really affect the story, I just think it's hilarious that even Disney TV studios can't resist killing some parents. Next, in the book, Wen has the hots for Sydney instead of just hating her for some ambiguous reason. But the biggest thing, to me, is Scott. Yes, Scott. At the end of the book, Mo ends up with Charlie. Scott doesn't get a stupid rushed redemption, which is why in the film, Scott flips back and forth between being a decent person with bad friends to a total manipulative creep. Unfortunately, I think this is the weakest part of the story. I get that they wanted to teach kids that you won't always get to be with the person you want. It's a good message, but if this is the movie they wanted to put it in, more needed to be done to adapt Scott and the story around it. So, that's it. If any of that information wasn't accurate, forgive me. In conclusion, I guess I'll just say that the thing I like most about Lemonade Mouth is that it tries to be more. It was created in a scenario where quality really doesn't matter. It didn't have to be good. It just had to make babies like it enough that they would listen to the music. And yet, it was good anyway. There was effort in the camera work, there was effort in the editing, and in the script, and in the performances. It tried to stay true to the spirit of the book. The people who made this movie cared about it, and maybe the fact that that makes this movie unusual is pretty sad. I don't know. But anyway, that's our show. Thanks for watching.
Beefy Guy 1 and Beefy Guy 2.